I mostly specialize in eating disorders. It's actually my practice, body image issues. And the more I got into that, I just see so many common threads with systems of power, systems of oppression that we've lived in, whether that be diet culture or a repressive religion. There are just so many common threads. And because I personally went through faith transition, I got really passionate about that type of work. And so now my practice is expanding to also see people who are going through faith transitions. We offer life coaching for people across state lines too, because let's face it, sometimes your mental health goes to shit when your entire world paradigm comes crashing down. So we need it to do this. So here's your two-part question. One is, what is the thing you're most excited about in this faith transition process? And two, what is the thing that scares you most about transitioning out of religion or out of your current religion? All right. So there are a lot of different types of fears that people can have when they're going through a faith transition. A lot of what I notice is anxiety and depression are frequent things that pop up when you're leaving. So there are three main types of anxiety. One is chemical, right? It's literally the way you were born. If that's all the memories you have from when you're 3 years old, even though you had a very safe environment and a very happy childhood, but you were just always an anxious kid, maybe that's a chemical type of anxiety. There's a situational type of anxiety, which means there's probably a pretty valid reason why you're so anxious, because there's something in the environment that isn't safe, that is threatening to relationships, that is going on. And when that thing's resolved, then oftentimes the anxiety is resolved. The third type of anxiety that I see the most in my work here is moral anxiety. The anxiety that comes when one is not living in congruence with their values. So for instance, me growing up and really had this value of performing, letting my voice be heard. I liked being loud, like wearing cheetah print. I was a theater kid, and so loved like dressing up and being loud. And yet in my home, the value of modesty was more than just in clothing choice, was in attitude, right? No loud laughter, those type of things. And I would get so anxious being unable to live my authentic self in my home. But of course, I had no idea why. So it was treated as if it was a chemical anxiety going on for me, like all growing up, like, we'll just keep putting her on meds, keep sending her to therapy. But yet the moment I'm able to live my authentic life, oh, wow, all of that's suddenly resolved. Amazing. So moral anxiety. And what I want to do today is for us to really look at the values we were raised with versus the values we have now or are trying to have now, and just witness kind of what are the incongruencies that are going on. And maybe that can clue us in on how to live more authentically and how to live just a better life with mental health as well. So there is a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. Didn't think I was going to say some scripture on here, but here it is. Here's some Bhagavad Gita scripture. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. And it's better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection, which is essentially what I think we were all trying to do, was live with perfection to this external measuring stick that we had, right? So for this next exercise, we're going to have, hopefully we'll be able to have a screen pop up that's going to show a big old list of values. And it's certainly not comprehensive. So if there's any values that you think of that aren't on the list, totally cool. So for this first part of the exercise, I want you to list the top 10 values that the church taught, that you grew up with. What were they trying to to teach, or what do they show to you? If you were to guess the LDS church, if they were to do this exercise, what would their top 10 values be? So I want you to look at this list of values and jot down the top 10 values that the church taught. And you're welcome to even start this without looking at this list. Totally fine. The top 10 values that the church teaches or taught you. And while you're finishing up writing your top 10 values of the LDS church, or the top 10 values of the way you were raised, I'll say that, so the values that you're coming up with perhaps were your measuring stick. If you could picture this, like the kind of measuring stick that you measure your kids every year to see how tall they've gotten, picturing that kind of measuring stick, and these values being the ticks in the line. This is how you can look and see how I'm doing, because it's hard to know, like, okay, how am I doing? Okay, did I read my scriptures all these days? Yes. Okay, great. I know I'm at least up here. Am I going to the temple once a week? Yes. Okay, I'm up here. All right. Am I taking the sacrament each week? Yes, I'm up here. Right. Like, we learn to look outward to start measuring how we are doing in life, which isn't super congruent with good mental health, which is kind of like what made my whole faith transition happen anyway. Was the more I learned about solid mental health and the way that one thinks when their mental health is on point was not in congruence with what I was learning at church. So I kind of had to make a choice, like, what team am I going to pick? Because these two can't coexist. I couldn't find a way for them to coexist. So I want you to picture that measuring stick. All of these values that the church taught you. All right, so for this second part, and this part's real challenging, but I want you to list your top 10 values. So the values that not only you're trying to live now, but like are living now, trying to live now. And this is super hard because you probably look at this and value most of the things on the list. So yeah, it's challenging. So one way to do this would be like going through and just putting like a dot next to all the ones that you're like, that you resonate with, and then narrowing down from there. If you could only pick 10 to guide your life by, what 10 would those be? What are some of the values that you were raised with that you find it really challenging to like be able to merge, reconcile with the current values you're trying to live? Okay, so what are some of the also congruencies, but also what are some of the incongruencies? How are you trying to navigate that? I think that exercise is such an important one to do. And I know we're doing like a really abbreviated version right now, but it's kind of like when this measuring stick goes away, now what? Now, how do I know how to be a good person is sometimes what comes up, or how do I know how I'm doing? And so developing this internal now measuring stick is what you guys are hopefully doing by making these values. Like, when you go home at night and you are feeling a little bit anxious about an interaction you had, I wonder if you took a look at the values and you were like, yeah, that felt icky to me. You know, maybe I wasn't fully honest. I was just trying to tell this person what I thought they wanted me to say. And now I have to sit with that dissonance, and that feels a little icky to me because I value like honesty, perhaps. And yeah, I think really turning to your values when there's a big decision to be made, again, instead of looking outward for all of the answers, we are redeveloping this practice of now looking inward for answers instead of out, which is a huge paradigm shift. It takes a lot of practice. So another thing that we've done with the values is parents who maybe really still valued their like family home evening practice. It was like, now what do I teach my children? So we'll have a husband and wife or partners look at the values and decide what home evening lessons do we want to teach our kids now. Because maybe we go week by week and we do one on health, one on integrity, one on courage, whatever those ones are that are congruent for you. Maybe that's what we teach our kids. And when our kids get old enough, maybe we also have them do this exercise and they can say, you know what, I really value this. Or when they get sent to timeout, yeah, what value were you living in congruence with? Or what happened there? Oh, and is this a value of you to like kindness? And oh, you hit your brother. Dang, it can be really a great source of a lot of good discussion. Both for, in family systems is one that we've used this a lot. So yeah, I guess I just want to leave you with that, and can hone in on what are your top values, and get curious when you are feeling some like dis-ease, discomfort in your body, in your system, emotionally, to look and see what value am I not living in congruence with? Where am I going off here? Because chances are there were some things in your value system that wasn't quite aligning. When people I work with are considering, maybe I do want to stay in the church, because sometimes they'll see me and they'll be like, I don't know, I'm having a faith crisis, but like, maybe I want to stay, maybe I want to go. Have them do this exercise. And if a bunch of their values are the same, theirs and the church, then for them, staying probably makes sense. Honestly, that is probably going to be a great way to live their values. However, if you did this exercise and it is literally like there was no crossover, then it's like, okay, well, perhaps leaving does make the most congruent sense for you. And it's, sometimes not like the most black and white answer like that, but that is a great way to do this. And hopefully it makes good discussion with you and your like partner, significant other, children, all of that. So yeah, I can drop in, I don't know, any of my information, whatever you need in the chat, I guess, to keep in contact or whatever, however I can help any of you or any of my team members help any of you, take some steps in your faith transition. So woo woo, power to you.